Welcome back, guys. After a long time, I am creating one more video. So we will create a complete course for Playwright. So let's start from the scratch. First of all, let's understand what is Selenium, and then step by step we will go to Playwright. Okay, so this is the introduction video, so don't expect any coding in this video. Okay, yes. So what is Selenium? Basically, 10 years back, 10 or nearby like 17 years, somewhere around 2004, a team introduced a Selenium. So basically, which is nothing but a tool to overcome the problems people have faced with paid tools. So they wanted to have a automation tool for a web applications. So during that time, HP QFT was in the peak. When the Selenium got introduced, so people started moving towards Selenium because it's a open source and it is in Java. So this was the main reason why Selenium got popular. As the Selenium got popular, the team also thought of releasing a different products in the open source itself, but to a different languages. So they have started with Java, and then it went to Ruby, C Sharp, Python, and JavaScript. So when it came to the JavaScript, few days they have managed a repository called WebDriver.js. So post that one, they felt like it was not enough. Then they have created a layer around WebDriver.js, and they have created a tool called protractor. So these JS tools all work with the JavaScript. But normally prior to 2004 or nearby that time, all the JavaScript used to work on the browsers, not on the desktops. Basically, whenever somebody says they are working in a JavaScript, most of the people thought they are working on the browser development of a web application in the browser. Okay, they never thought like it will become a backend tool. Everyone thought it's a like a front end tool, uh, language only. So the guys then developed a tool called Node.js. So this Node.js is developed using JavaScript. That is the funny part, and it is used to write JavaScript. Okay, but instead of browsers, now we can start writing on the desktop to automate the browser itself, or to develop different backend applications using this Node.js. So when protractor came, they have built it with JavaScript on Node.js platform. So whenever we want to run protractor, we wanted a Node.js platform to be present. So now after a couple of years, I mean about like 8 or 9 years, Google have introduced one more tool called Puppeteer. So what this Puppeteers will do, basically this Puppeteer is nothing but a Chromium browser. So if you are not sure what Chromium browser is, let me explain. Okay, now we are in Puppeteer. This Chromium browser is basically an engine behind the Chrome browser. When you take a Chrome browser, it is a free tool, but it is not an open source tool. So Google team have released a version called Chromium. Basically this project is an open source project as well as it's a free one. So after a couple of years, they thought of releasing a JavaScript of that particular Chromium. This Chromium works as a desktop application, but when Google team created another node modules called Chromium, basically for the same browser they have created a repository. So this repository is basically used to automate the Chromium. Okay, so now this particular tool called Puppeteer, they started calling Puppeteer. Okay, even though it's a Chromium browser, still when we call it as a node models, we call it as a Puppeteer. So we started working on the Puppeteer for a couple of years. Everything was good, but after 2 or 3 years, Microsoft have released Edge browser based on Chromium engine. Previously, the Microsoft Edge was working on the Internet Explorer engine. I don't know the engine name, but it was working with Microsoft under Internet Explorer. But later they have changed the engine behind the Microsoft Edge, now they have changed it to Chromium. So automatically this Puppeteer started supporting Edge browser as well, along with Chrome. So now Puppeteer supports Chromium. Basically it supports only Chromium, but Chrome and Edge browsers are using Chromium engine, so it automatically supports Chrome and Edge browser. So now we have three browsers: Chromium, Chrome and Edge. So later couple of months, Puppeteer team itself started developing another cross-browser support for Firefox from the Puppeteer. So it's still in a development mode, but it will not give much of a all the functionalities. Even if we try to automate the Firefox, it still fails. So this is one of the reason people did not use Puppeteer to automate Firefox. But if we run 100 test cases which passes in a Chrome browser, nearly somewhere around 90 test cases will pass in Firefox as well without any code change. Okay, so now Microsoft thought, already we have a browser called Edge, why can't we add automation support for it? So then the bulb started glowing. So they have hired people from the Puppeteer team itself. If you take Puppeteer team, the guys who have developed the Puppeteer team, the core team actually, they have joined Microsoft to develop Playwright. So now, what is the difference between this Puppeteer and Playwright? If you ask me, I don't find much of a differences as of now. The main difference, but anyways, the main difference is the Playwright more focused towards Chromium engine, or you can say like when Microsoft works, it's not going to really like I'll give very well support for Chrome, but their thought was like, let's do it for Chromium so that internally, or indirectly, it will support the Edge browser. So they wanted to bring the Edge browser to the market. So this was the one of the reason why Playwright, Microsoft team started hiring people from Puppeteer team. Okay, so now did they do something different with the Playwright? Yes, they have added support for Firefox. So now Playwright starts supporting Chromium engine, that is Chrome and Edge browser, and Firefox, and as well as WebKit, which is nothing but the search, engine that works behind a Safari browser. So this one looks similar to Selenium. Okay, Selenium also supports all these browsers, but what is the difference between these two? Selenium majorly works with head browsers. With UI they'll try to work, but when it comes to Playwright and Puppeteer, they work headless. When we have a headed browser, a browser with a UI and a browser without UI, the browser without UI works faster than browser with a UI. So this was the one of the major thing when they were when we take comparison between Selenium and Playwright. And another major thing is Selenium is a tool. Okay, actually a tool which is used to automate a browser, but Puppeteer and Playwright are the browsers. Okay, even though it is a tool when we use it for Firefox and WebKit, but it is the browser when we use it for Chrome and Microsoft Edge. So what are the features, more features they that Playwright has? So here, other than supporting the browsers, the Playwright also helps the user to decode the or intercept the network elements that is passing, network items. So whenever we, for example, let's say we open a Google page. Okay, let me open it. Okay, let's say I am opening Google page. Here if I go to dev tools and if I see networks, these are the elements that is passing between my browser and the server of Google. Okay, so using Puppeteer you can intercept these things. So when they are developing the Playwright, they have also added the features for supporting these elements. So whatever you can see here as in the dev tools, all the things you can do it with Playwright and Puppeteer. Okay, you can see how the performance of a web page, or there is another tool called Lighthouse. Basically this Lighthouse performs a couple of audits on your website, like how fast it is and how what are the best practices you are using. So these are the features that Playwright has. But if you ask me, like, is there any feature which differentiates the Puppeteer and Playwright? The only feature is the Playwright supports Firefox and WebKit very well. Okay, sorry, Playwright supports Puppeteer and WebKit, but Puppeteer does not. I mean, it tries to support Firefox, but it is still in a development stage. Okay, so now the question, should I download Playwright right away instead of a Puppeteer? For this question, let me answer. If you are using a Puppeteer, I would suggest not to jump into Playwright, just wait, because Puppeteer repository is also actively developed. It is not like the team has abandoned it. It is still actively developed and it is still with Google. Okay, and when it comes to the Playwright is also under development only. I mean, it is completed for the browser support, but still they are adding more and more features. So if you are already using Puppeteer, I would not suggest to jump into Playwright. But if you are in the place where you have to decide Puppeteer or Playwright, then you are in a right place that you can choose for Playwright. You can go with Playwright. Okay, so where can I download this particular Playwright? So you can go to npm repository, npm.js. You can use the total thing itself. So this is basically, it looks for Excel package. Okay, let me search for Playwright. So it is a simple code. Just you need to type npm install Playwright. Okay, now let me search for Puppeteer. If you see, the trend started going every week, almost like 2 lakh people are downloading this Playwright. When it goes to Puppeteer, it is about almost like 22 lakhs people are downloading every week, because it is established and it is a bit old, but Playwright is new and it gives more features. Okay, so that is the one thing that you need to consider. So if you are starting to use Playwright, yes, well and good, you can use it. But if you are already using Puppeteer and now you want to change to Playwright, I would not suggest go do that. Okay, just stick with Puppeteer. So even Puppeteer team is developing all the features that Playwright has. Okay, so there is one more extra feature that Playwright has is you can record and write the code. It is not like a record and play, but it is record, it will create a code and then you can run it. Okay, so this is one of the feature the Playwright has. So the command is simple, use npm playwright, but to execute this one you need to have a node installed in your systems. Okay, so that's all with this video. I hope the introduction is good enough. So from the next video onwards, we will be jumping into the code, actual code. Okay, thank you guys.